Hey, it's Mr. Estrada here, and in this video we are going to learn how do we factor trinomials when a is greater than 1. And we're going to look at two ways to do that. Okay, so what do I mean by when a is greater than 1? Normally the standard form of a quadratic is given as ax squared plus bx plus c. And up to this point, we've been factoring expressions when a equals 1. So for example, x squared plus 5x plus 6. We've been factoring expressions like this. Today's video, what we want to look at is how do you factor expressions when a, the coefficient of x squared, is greater than 1. So for example, how would you factor something like this? So that's what we want to look at today. And we're going to look at two ways to do that. So here's our first example. Factor 3x squared plus 12x minus 15. All right, the first thing you want to check is see if you could divide everything by a. And you can in example 1 because 3, 12, and 15 are divisible by 3. And what that does is it reduces the quadratic to x squared plus 4x minus 5. And then that's something that we know how to factor, right? You need your two sets of parentheses. X here, and we know it's going to be 5 and 1. We're going to make the 5 positive and this negative. Now, what about that 3? Well, you just put it out here. And that's your final answer. So the first thing you want to do when a is greater than 1 is check to see if you could divide by a, reducing it to something that you already know how to factor, and factor it. And then don't forget to take that number you divided by and just put it in the front of the expression. Okay, example 2. Well, what happens when you can't divide everything by a, as is the case here in example 2? How do you factor that now? To factor that, we're going to use a method that's called factoring by grouping. Factoring by grouping. All right, so let me give you the steps first. Find the product of a and c, find the factors of a and c that have the sum of b, rewrite the trinomial using the factors to replace b, group, factor each pair, factor out the shared common binomial, parentheses. All right, so these steps, they look like a foreign language to you at this point. So what I want to do is just go through each step by using 6x squared plus 13x minus 8 as an example, and that should take us to the end of our video. Okay, so first it says find the product of a and c. So here's our a and here's our c, and what's the product of that? It's negative 48. Step 2. Find the factors of a times c that have a sum of b. Okay, so let's look at the factors of negative 48. We know 1 times 48 gives us 48, but we could never get that to add up to 13. How about 2 and 24? Can I manipulate the signs of these numbers in such a way so that they could add up to 13? No, that won't do it. How about 3 and 16? Yeah, I could manipulate this. I know that one of them has to be negative because they have to multiply to negative 48. So if I make the 3 negative, I'll have negative 3 times 16, that's negative 48, and negative 3 plus 16 gives me the sum of 13. So these are the factors I'm going to use. These are the factors of AC that have a sum of B. Okay, step 3. Rewrite the trinomial using factors to replace B. So essentially, what I want to do is I want to rewrite 6x squared plus 13x minus 8, but I want to replace the B. I want to replace this. So that's why you see I left a big gap over there. And I want to replace that by using the factors that I found here. So I'm going to replace 13x with negative 3x and plus 16x. And it has to be x and x because they have to add up to positive 13x. So you need those x's there, not just the factors. Okay? All right, so now I have this. What's my next step? It says group. What it means is split these 4 terms into 2 groups. Just like that. Maybe you want to draw a line in the middle, or maybe you want to have a mental line that splits it into 2 groups. Now, you want to factor each pair. So we want to factor each one of these pairs. We got a little taste of this in the last video. So let's factor 6x squared minus 3x. What's the greatest common factor here? The greatest common factor is 3x. 3x times 2x gives me 6x squared. 3x times negative 1 gives me negative 3x. What's the greatest common factor of 16 and 8? The greatest common factor of these terms is 8. 8 times 2x gives me 16x. And 8 times negative 1 gives me negative 8. The idea is that you want to have a shared binomial. You want to make sure that what's inside the parentheses here and here is the same. So you want to make sure of that. Okay, let me just erase that. And it is the same. If it's not the same because maybe a sign is different, you have to manipulate it so that they are the same. Okay, so we factored each pair. Now, factor out the shared binomial, parentheses. So we're going to make 2x minus 1, one of the factors. And then we're going to take these coefficients, 3x and 8, and we're going to make that into a set of parentheses, so we get 3x plus 8. And you could check that it's right by foiling it out. When you foil it out, it should come back to the original. So why don't we just go ahead and do that now? So 3x times 2x, that's 6x squared. 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. 8 times 2x is 16x. 8 times negative 1 is negative 8. So we combine the like terms. We get plus 13x. Bring everything else down. We got 6x squared plus 13x minus 8. It does come back to the original. Since it comes back to the original, That's our final answer. 3x plus 8 times 2x minus 1 is our final answer. Okay, I hope this video helps. Take care.